conversation. He is the past chairman, ICANN, Ikeja District and Public Affairs Analyst, Olusegun Okunade. Good morning. You always join us from Zoom, but we see you here now. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
Yeah, good morning. I'm glad to be here. I want to congratulate and celebrate TVC once again.
Yeah.
You know, I think this is first time on set here in the studio
beautiful.
live.
Okay.
I've always been a virtual participant because of what I would say time. Just need to. I'm sure we all understand what it is.
Yes,
exactly.
We're glad to be here and seeing everybody looking.
Exactly, and we're really glad to have you here to dissect on this topic. Now, we're talking about this sale. We see NUPENG and others are saying they're kicking against it. I was reading on social media, and people are saying this is quick money, future problems. That is what they call it, you know, because right now you sell it, you get the money quickly, but at the end of the day, you face a problem in the future. I just want to go direct to you in this question. Should they sell it? And first of all, what is the reason behind this?
Okay, thank you very much. If I need to address the question of should they sell it, from my perspective is yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
And why do I want to say this? A lot of us have been in the atmosphere to say government should actually distance themselves from doing business. Government is not created in doing business, but creating an enabling environment for those that understand what business dynamics is all about and carry it out. And when you look at some of these government assets, they've actually used taxpayers' money to bring them up. And here we are. I'll give you a typical example. All our refineries, I can't remember the last time we've been discussing this, that they produced a liter of fuel. And we have a lot of people. In fact, the disheartening thing out of it is that yearly allocation, budgetary allocation is given to these in terms of maintenance turnaround, and we are not producing anything. So you ask yourself, government is doing this business for us, but we are not getting the dividend. But there are people who understand the dynamics of business. A lot of people might come out to say capitalist, but you can imagine when you buy an asset as an individual, you keep it and you are not putting it in use. From the finance perspective, there are things we call depreciation. Every asset is bound to depreciate, whether you use or you don't use. And the fact remains that there are lifespan expected of such, because we believe that within that stipulated period, you would have put them to use to recoup your funds in getting those things back. A majority of the assets that government has actually procured in time past have been obsolete. A lot of them have not actually yielded the necessary dividend. And I'm like, how can we be keeping all these assets, living idle, without actually giving the reason or the dividend of you actually buying some of them? And that's why my reason of saying government can have stake in this thing, like they did, you know, when we started Dangote refinery. They bought stake in it, at least to have, you know, a say in what goes on in that particular thing. But I am of the opinion that government should divert themselves off doing business, create an enabling environment. Even when you have the asset, we may not have that financial capacity. It might be in the capacity of the government, but get the asset, give it to those people, give them like a private sector we do. Give them target, this is the return, this is what we want, and make it, you know, to be citizen based. We are giving you this asset, we know you don't have the financial muscle, and we are creating the enabling environment, but I want my citizen to benefit. So you can imagine, as we speak, if our 4 refineries are actually functioning, will we be relying solely or asking people to tell you that Dangote is monopolizing? No. What we will be talking at this point in time is that the law of demand and supply, which everybody keep hanging on, let the forces of demand and supply work things out, will now play out.
But Mr. Shasa, let me say something quickly, Thomas. Sorry, let me just do this quick follow-up. You know, you are saying that it's good for it to be sold. But now the question on social media, and our viewer, one of our very good viewers just sent me this question, is who do they then sell it to? Is it Nigerians or foreigners?
Nigerians. We must be proudly Nigerians. I keep telling every individual, the only thing we lack as far as this country is concerned is to have a system that actually put everybody in check. And that we see a lot. If there is no control mechanism in this organization, I'm sure you want to do whatever you like. But because you know there are consequences if you go against certain things, it puts you on check. So as far as I'm concerned, when you get some of these assets into the hands of the people, and there are drawn, guidelines of what is expected of you, you have an expectation sitting on those seats.
Yeah.
We did not just employ you because we want to see your face. Yeah. There are expectations of you, and when you don't meet up, people, there are post production meetings you have. You flaw here, you have to improve here. You can do the same in business. We are not saying that government to buy into the stake of some of these things, but let it be proudly Nigerian. We cannot, you can borrow the idea of foreigners and say, okay, you have the technical expertise, bring it on board, and my people are on ground, because it is still the citizen that we are out to serve it. And I think that on its own will give more confidence on the part of the citizen to say that the government is actually, very conscious of the people that they are actually leading.
The funny thing about the whole of this saga for me is that it will promote the private sector getting into these businesses. That's if those assets are sold. And as you have recommended, they should be sold to Nigerians. Let it be a proudly Nigerian sector. All right? The members of NUPENG are in the private sector. They also know this business. So what is it about the sale of these assets that NUPENG is so against?
I was listening at the first production when you were actually saying you started your career in the private, public sector.
Yeah.
Now you're in the private sector, and I'm sure you can balance it out.
Yes, yes.
The truth remains, I've asked myself that NLC, TUC, NUPENG, and all this union, they might think to be singing their way out of relevance with some of the things they're doing if they are if they are allowing themselves to be used by some of these so-called politicians for selfish interest. I will come out to say, if you're thinking that it is those that have actually taken our money that will buy it off, is it not better off to buy it off, get you engaged, and let more people get employment? You can imagine the wastages we are experiencing on some of the government agencies in meeting up with some of the things they are supposed to deliver as against the private sector. Have you seen an instances where you do PPP with an agency and the civil servant come to tell you, for Christ's sake, we don't understand. A private sector will not allow you to come to work by 9 o'clock. You and I understand that. They will not allow you to take excuses for days of not coming, hiding on the... as a matter of fact, when you skip the work for a particular day, a lot of people will say it's slavery. But is it not delivering? You can imagine if there are no control mechanism in this organization, you can choose to come to work, maybe 3 times in a week and give excuses, possibly doing certain things that has to do with yourself. And I've asked myself, the NUPENG, the TUs, they are in the private sector. They can see the value. What we are talking about here is value. Value,
exactly.
So the people.
Exactly.
I can imagine if in the last 5 years, all our 4 refineries, quite disheartening that people like us were seen as being pessimistic and not, patriotic. When years back, during the last regime, they were telling us that the Port Harcourt refinery will come upstream, this and that. It did for 1 or 2 months.
Yes.
And as we speak, who is asking question? Nobody is asking question. So much money has actually dumped into that particular thing. But will you try that with the private sector? A man, take for example, I will always refer to Dangote. Is gone to borrow funds to execute the project.
Yes.
But on the part of the government, don't forget, we are using taxpayers' money. As far as I'm concerned, it's a free fund.
It's free funds.
Cost of capital is zero. But you're talking of a man that has actually been approached by a financial institution who has cost implication in the funds he has borrowed. I'm sure you want to take, chances in wasting those funds. And that's why I'm of the opinion. Not because we feel that it's being capitalist in nature, but let's see how we can continually put some of these assets to use. Not only even refineries, a lot of other things in other sectors that we can bring in. There is a way this private sector have the drive. Right. And I can tell you most of the time when those in private sector get into the public sector, you understand that.
I found quite intriguing, some of the points that you actually raised. Some of them clearly aligned with those who are for, and then those who are against. You know, some people are not even against. For instance, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar had earlier alleged that government intended to reduce its equity in some JVs from controlling shares of 65% down to 35 or 25%. But the problem there is now saying that the federation stakes in joint ventures such as RIGE JV, Oando JV, Seplat Energy JV, especially under terms that appear to disproportionately favor select insiders and foreign entities, risk undermining Nigeria's sovereignty over its most strategic resources, and that it is not probably being done, with lack of transparency. And the NUPENG and all that are kicking, they're also saying that it's going to make people lose their jobs. Isn't these, aren't these very, very important points to, consider when taking this decision?
When you say people are going to lose their job, let me use typically this organization. We know where we started from. We know where we are.
Yeah.
So have we talked about downsizing people in this particular area? The answer is no. When you give opportunity to private investors or private organizations, private people to manage businesses, what strikes their brain is expansion. It's expansion. I'm starting on this level. In the next, you won't go to any financial institution without giving projection of where you'll be in the next 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
As a matter, nobody will take you serious.
Yes.
You need to tell us, okay, in the next 5 years, because they are buying into it. This thing is something that is connected. When I succeed, it impacts on you as a financial institution, and you are able to grow. So they want to look at it. Okay, this that you are giving to us, we don't want a 1 year plan. We don't want what you want to achieve as we speak for the next 1 year. We're looking at it in the next 5 years so that we can prepare ourselves in some of those things. Do we have this when it comes to government? We can have it on paper. But when it comes to implementation, you start hearing of excuses. And because I will go back to that aspect of saying the funds being made use of by the government is at zero capital, is taxpayers' money. But when you go ahead to borrow the funds, you are actually putting in perspective the cost of funds that you're actually borrowing. So I think former Vice President Atiku is right by saying reduce government's stake in some of these things. And I will call out the agencies responsible for actually checkmating the activities of people, not only the public servants, even the private people. There must be consequences to wrongdoing.
Oh, yes. Oh,
that
yes.
will serve as deterrent. I think that is a gap.
Yeah.
I will keep telling every individual, we complain of insecurity.
Yeah.
Why is it increasing on a daily basis? There is no day we wake up, we don't read about killings here and there. How many people have actually been brought to justice? When you go to other aspect of area, it's because there are no consequences for wrongdoing, and it now becomes a norm. When somebody is doing it and it's actually not being punished, I feel like it's the normal thing to do. And more other people go into it. And I think that's the link, the gap that we have in this particular
Okay, but now I want to talk about transparency, and I'm going to take you back a little bit. You said that it should be bought by only Nigerians. What are we going to do to monitor that? Because my fear and the fear of others is that we hope this is not going to be sold to international people, because at the end of the day, we are prioritizing our own, we're prioritizing Nigeria. So I'm talking about the fact that, how do we make sure that it's going to be sold to Nigerians? And after that, the monies that are going to be gotten, what are they definitely going to be used for? And how do we checkmate that they were used for what they said they will be used for?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. And that's why we say we need to build up a system that checks the activity. Most of the time, we are reactive to issues. People would have taken our money.
That's right.
I tell individuals, an auditor that does not put in, internal auditor that does not put in control mechanism, you only be reading papers. Take, for example, we need to get you an iPhone. And there is no, a phone, okay. And there is no cost control to say, this is the cap of what the budget should look at, from the internet control mechanism. Anybody can go ahead and get that phone at any price. And if we're telling you is bargaining, I try to bargain, even something that will cost 200,000. Somebody is bringing a fee of like 200 or 300,000. But because you have a cap, this is the minimum threshold, this is the maximum threshold, at which we can go, which still give lacuna if you have a good negotiation skill to say, okay, you are getting it for 90,000 and you are willing to say, okay, they've given the cap to be 100,000. So let's do away with some of these things. So what am I saying invariably? If there is control mechanism of things that needed to be done, how to do it. I keep telling the individual, Nigeria is very fantastic when it comes to policy formulation. In fact, when people yearn for new constitution, new law, new everything, I said, have we explored 50% of what we have on paper currently? And that's why the last time I picked up on one of my friend, who is the chairman of the Presidential Task Force on Fiscal Policy, to say, these are very laudable things. And I appreciate Mr. President telling you that don't just give us on paper, implement it. So when you asked about how do we see the transparency, you must have those documentation on paper and go further to see how you follow through and reveal to people. And where people are deviating, it's bound to happen. I tell him, every individual has this propensity of deviating from what the vision looks like.
Yes.
But there's something that must bring you back to track. And that's why we see some of these things. You come up and say, this particular asset has actually been bought by this individual, throw it upon, let people, raise questions, and you come up objectively with some of those things. And it's not something you do in secrecy. People should be able to, I should be able to give my voice, say, no, if they're talking about it, I know so much about this individual. Why suddenly somebody that cannot afford to buy himself, a car, is suddenly going to venture into a business of 100 millions of naira? Don't let me even go, because I don't like calling the other currency. Going into the 100 million contract. He who is not faithful in a little would definitely have a problem to manage that big thing that you'll be given to.
Right. I look at these things, and from everything that we have discussed so far, that there's a Nigerian first policy. Well, you just said that having all these policies on paper is fantastic, but practicalizing it is a different matter entirely. So I would like to advocate that in selling it, if at the end of the day all this noise by NUPENG and other trade unions that are kicking against it doesn't succeed, we should use the Nigerian first policy in this thing. But let's go to my question now. We are looking at assets that are super expensive. Some of them whole refineries. Some of them components that refineries need for smooth work and so on. And the unit price of these things are, when I think about it, it spins my head. Do we have do we have Nigerian individuals or organizations that can wholly pay for these things if it is put in the market?
Yeah, I'll tell you that when you talked about a particular product, a particular asset being expensive, do we have individuals that can carry that out? It's a matter of you having that interest. And that's why the financial institutions are there. How are you able to galvanize and put together what we call feasibility report on this asset that you're buying and you're given? When Dangote started, was it about his personal funds? The answer is no. He actually looked through it, planned himself, and said, this is where I should be in the next 5 years if you actually buy into this particular idea which I'm galvanizing. Not only refinery, there are other sectors that the essence of this financial institution playing out there is not just to hold custodians, the savings of people, is to put it to use, to be able to pay the stakeholders at the end of it, people that have invested in that particular area. And they are open to it to say, this idea. And that's why you need to now look at the risk analysis of that particular thing that you're actually venturing into. And that's what the concern of this financial institution is all about. So when you say these things are bloated, they are actually too expensive to manage, our financial institution has the capability to actually provide that support. And they have international affiliation. If they don't have that capacity locally to liaise with their international financial institution, which they are a partner with, to say we can see this potential and let's venture into it and see what comes out of it. And you understand part of the things this thing will go. The people will not put down their money and go to bed to sleep.
No, no way.
They want to get involved.
Because of our time, I want to quickly chip in this question, because yes, we can sell, we want to buy, we know Nigerians. You've actually addressed the issue of Nigerians, buying this, being able to buy and run this effectively. But are we addressing, because so much divestment that we've done, we are not essentially addressing the problems that this eventually create for the communities, the pollutions and all of that. We're just talking about the Ogoni. What kind of model or what kind of regulatory, policies should the government put on the ground to ensure that, yes, we respect the environment and not put people into problems? Very quickly.
Yeah, I'll say this, that you should make it participatory. Get the communities involved in some of the planning. Most of the time, when it comes to development in certain areas, you don't even get the people involved to know what they need. You feel that you can make provision of what you think they need. There are two distinct things. You are going to an area, you are providing pipe-borne water when it is not needed by them. And you feel that, no, it's one of the basic things that they actually needed. Meanwhile, they needed to just develop, their education in that area to galvanize how to actually tap into some of these things. I think first thing need to be done. Let's make it participatory. Get the community involved. What actually do they need? When it comes to some of these spillages that are actually being done, there are rules governing it. But most of the time, we flout the organization concerned, flout the law, buy their way out from the agencies.
Without consequences.
That are supposed to do. And there are no consequences to that. But situation where you actually say, if you actually flout this is the consequence, and you pay, which will impact on the bottom line. See how it goes. When it impacts on your bottom line, your stakeholders, who are the shareholders that have invested in that thing, are asking the board, what suddenly happened? We are expecting to have a dividend of 1 naira per shares, and you are just paying us 10 kobo. What suddenly happened? And you are coming with excuses of something you should have been able to mitigate, which is considered as part of your corporate social responsibility.
I wish we had time, Mr. Olusegun, to go, because this is such an interesting topic. And at the end of the day, before I let you go, I just hope, whether they sell it or not, I hope it affects the common Nigerian positively. At the end of the day, whether it's been sold
what we advocate
or not been
for
sold.
all the time is that good governance, give the country that which we desire, because I always tell people we are blessed with natural resources. The human capital is there, and we are doing exploit everywhere that we go.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us. It's our pleasure to have you join us on the show this morning.